Where I am going is none of your business. That is what my wife said to me. Her voice was as cold as a blast of winter air. The door shivered in the frame when she walked out, dressed to turn heads for someone who was not me. She did not know I was already planning my next move. I had a heavy glass in my hand. Whiskey caught the low lamplight and turned slow in the bottom as my fingers went still. Across the hall, Emily Carter stood at the long mirror and worked on her earrings like a performer getting ready for the stage. The silk dress held her in a way that looked intentional. A sharp, new perfume drifted through the room. It smelled expensive. It was nothing I recognized. "Where are you going dressed like that?" I asked. I kept my voice flat, but a wire of tension ran through it. She turned just enough for me to see her from the side. For half a second, I waited for the old smile, the one from when we were new. It did not come. Her mouth tightened instead. "Where I am going is none of your business." It hit like thunder. In all our years together, she had never spoken to me like that. Not once. She snatched her clutch. Her heels clicked across the floorboards. The door banged. Silence rushed in behind her. I sat with the glass at my lip and could not swallow. "None of your business." This from the woman who used to say she could not breathe without me. This from the woman who squeezed my hands during our vows like she meant forever. I felt like a stranger standing between her and whatever she had planned. I faced the truth I had known and would not say out loud. That dress was not for a night out with friends. The makeup was careful and exact. Her hair was done in a style she had stopped wearing for me years ago. The truth settled into me, cold and heavy. I pulled out my phone. My thumb hovered while I scrolled past familiar names to one I had never called. 2 years ago, at an end-of-year Chamber of Commerce gala, I met a private investigator named Frank Walker. We ended up on the patio with cigars. He told quiet stories about corporate fraud and about people who believe rules are made for other people. He pressed a card into my hand and grinned. "You never know when you might need me. Husbands, businessmen, trouble has a way of finding us." I almost threw that card away on the drive home. Something told me to keep it. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was how Emily had already started to drift back then, her eyes chasing bigger rooms and brighter lights. I tapped the number. "Walker," a steady voice said. "This is Michael Carter," I said, keeping my breath even. "We met at the gala 2 years ago. You gave me your card." There was a short pause, and then a low, familiar chuckle. "I remember you, Mr. Carter. What do you need?" I stared at the door my wife had just slammed. "I need you to follow my wife. Tonight. I want to know where she goes and who she is with. I want everything." He did not sound surprised. He sounded efficient. "Send me a photograph and her phone number. I will take it from there." When the call ended, I set the phone down and closed my eyes. I saw us in our first apartment. Cheap paint rollers. Music buzzing from a tinny speaker. Emily laughing with a streak of blue across her cheek. She told me forever when everything we owned fit in the back of a borrowed pickup truck. That promise thinned out, year by year, until it finally snapped. Tonight was not about suspicion anymore. Tonight was about proof. Wind rattled the windows like the house could feel what was coming. Morning stretched across the bedroom. The other side of the bed was cold and smooth. Untouched. I lay on my back and watched the ceiling fan turn slow, lazy circles after a night without sleep. Every creak in the boards reminded me of the quiet she left behind. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. I did not jump. I reached for it. I was ready to hear the truth I had asked for. My hand felt heavy as a brick. Frank Walker's name glowed on the screen. "Mr. Carter," he said, brisk but not unkind. "You were right to call." My throat tightened. "Tell me." "She met an older man. He has money. The kind of man who does not look at price tags," he said. "They had dinner at a high-end place. White tablecloths. Crystal. The whole setup. I have photographs." Her hand brushed his when the champagne glasses touched. After dinner, they drove to the Windsor Hotel. "I have sent everything to your email." I closed my eyes for a moment to steady myself. "Good. Prepare a full report that is suitable for legal use and send it." "Understood. You will have it before noon." The line went silent. The only sound left was the clock working through the room, 1 second at a time. I sat with the phone on my thigh and looked at the still house. I pictured Emily in that silk dress, laughing across a candlelit table at a man with silver hair and a smile that looked like a trap. My chest hurt, not with rage, but with something colder. Clarity. Whatever I had been pretending was over. My inbox chimed and broke the quiet. I opened Frank Walker's email. The photographs filled the screen one by one. Emily stepping out of a car like she had practiced it. Emily leaning in toward a man with smooth cuff links and a smile that looked like a hunter's grin. Emily crossing the marble lobby at the Windsor Hotel with his hand pressed on the small of her back, like a brand. Timestamps. Locations. Angles I could not argue with. I let the air out slow. No yelling. No glass thrown against a wall. Just the quiet choice a man makes when the last illusion finally melts away. I scrolled once more. Then I tapped a different contact. It was a locksmith whose card I had kept after a break-in on our street a year earlier. When I talked about upgrading our locks back then, Emily laughed and asked who would ever bother robbing us. I kept the card anyway, the same way you keep an umbrella on a sunny morning. Morning service, a voice answered. Yes, I said. I want every lock in the house changed today. Front door, back door, side entry, and the garage. I want new keys and new codes. We can be there by 9, he said. I will be waiting. I stood up on purpose, steady and calm. I opened the closet, pulled down Emily's matching suitcases, and set them on the floor. I folded her clothes like I was shelving a whole season of my own life. Dresses from weddings where we used to dance. Shoes I bought with birthday money. Silk blouses that still carried a faint, expensive scent. Piece by piece, the suitcases filled. Each folded thing felt like another stone sealing off a room I was not going to live in anymore. By the time the last zipper closed, the version of me that loved her past reason was gone. In his place stood a man who was colder, sharper, and a lot harder to move. At exactly 9, the doorbell chimed through the house. I opened the door to a stocky man in clean overalls with a toolbox in his hand. A white van idled in the driveway with Prime Guard locksmiths painted on the side in faded letters. His name tag read Tom Jenkins. Are you Carter? He asked. I nodded. Come in. Change everything. Front door, back door, side entry, and the garage. If it locks, replace it. He gave a soft whistle as he looked over the hardware. Must have had a scare. Something like that, I said. The words reached my mouth, but did not make it to my eyes. He started drilling. Metal hummed and clicked. While he worked, I moved from room to room, zipped the last suitcase, and lined the luggage by the door in a neat row. Emily's life reduced to rectangles with handles. I paused at her vanity. Small compacts. A fan of brushes. Bottles of perfume with cut glass that caught the light. I remembered a younger night when she dabbed scent on her wrists and asked me, almost shy, do you think that I am beautiful enough for you? I pulled her close then and told her I was the lucky one. Looking at those bottles now felt like the meanest joke in the world. By 10, Tom straightened and nodded. All set. New keys and a clean keypad code. Nobody gets in without your say-so. He placed a small ring of keys in my palm. The metal bit cold. Thank you, I said. He packed his tools and left, not knowing about the storm he had just sealed inside. When the van turned out of the drive, I opened the front door and slid the suitcases onto the porch. I lined them up under the gray light like exhibits set out for a jury. I stood there and looked at what I had done. It felt final. I locked the door with one of the new keys. The click was small and clean. It carried more weight than a shout. I dropped the rest of the keys into my pocket and felt my jaw set. Whatever came next would happen on my terms. I grabbed a small duffel from the closet and packed like I was heading out for a long weekend. A few changes of clothes. My laptop. The documents I could not afford to lose. I had parked my car a half block down the street the night before, more out of habit than strategy. As I walked, neighbors lifted their hands from across their lawns. I waved back and kept my face steady. On the outside I looked calm. Inside, something colder moved with purpose. I was not going to meet Emily with yelling or begging. I was not going to give her a show. I planned to remove the things she thought could not be touched: comfort, security, and control. Piece by piece, I would let the fantasy fall apart until the only things left were the truth and the weight of it. At 10:15, I drove to Ryan Brooks's apartment on the other side of town. Ryan opened the door and took one look at me. You look rough, he said. I handed him the duffel. I need a place for a few days. He did not push for details. He just nodded and stepped aside. My silence said enough. So did whatever he saw in my eyes. Near noon, my phone buzzed again. Frank Walker's report had landed. It was detailed, complete, and the kind of record a judge does not have to squint at. I downloaded the file and pressed my lips thin. The chessboard was set. All I had to do now was move the pieces I had already chosen. Ryan's place was quiet except for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the click from the air vent. I sat at his small kitchen table and opened the report on my phone. The photographs rolled by with time stamps and locations. Emily smiling in the kind of warm light restaurants used to make bad choices look charming. Emily with her fingers hooked on a man's sleeve. Emily and the silver-haired stranger walking under the Windsor Hotel awning, the lobby doors swallowing them both. So it is true, Ryan said from the counter with his arms folded. I did not answer. I forwarded the entire packet to a private electronic mail account, one Emily never knew existed. In that same folder, I had already stored a clean scan of our prenuptial agreement. It said in plain language and signatures that she would not receive one penny beyond what belonged to her. When we signed it, Emily had laughed and said we would never need it. I believed that once. Now that paper felt like a tool built for this exact day. Another buzz. A short note from Frank Walker. Full legal file ready. The hotel confirmed an overnight stay. Lawyer? Ryan asked. After the bank, I said. His eyebrow went up. She does not have access to your account, does she? She does, I said, and I heard my voice go hard. And I am not leaving 1 cent for her to touch. I stood, slid a slim folder of identification and account information under my arm, and walked to the door. This will not be clean, Ryan said. Once you start, there is no pause button. That is the point, I said and left. No storm in my chest. No shaking hands. Just the steady beat of a plan I could walk in the dark. I checked my watch. I could make the bank before Emily would ever think to head home. The lobby smelled like polished wood and disinfectant, the kind of neutral air that tells you nothing. I pushed through the glass doors and kept the same measured pace I had carried all morning. No hurry, no panic, just inevitability. A young banker met me with a practiced smile. Good afternoon, sir. How may I help you today? I set the folder on the counter and opened it flat. I want to move every dollar from this account into a new account in my name only, and I want all linked access permanently removed. Then I want every previous access closed. She blinked. People do not usually ask that directly, but she found her footing. Of course. May I see your identification? I slid it across and watched her fingers move over the keys. Numbers jumped and settled on her screen. Balances Emily would never see again. Would you like the transfer to remain internal or go to a separate branch? She asked. Separate, I said. I had already opened a new account that morning under an address Emily did not know. While she typed, my mind replayed an old scene. Emily at our kitchen sink years ago, smiling, asking if she could handle the household bills because you trust me, do you not? I had trusted her completely. That trust turned to ash. Betrayal teaches final lessons. She slid a stack of forms across the counter and pointed to the lines. Please sign here, sir. This will remove any previous secondary access and make the new account solely under your control. I signed, pen steady. Final. Would you like a cashier's check or a debit card today? Both, I said. Issue them now. A few minutes later, she handed me an envelope with the new account details, a card, and the documents I needed. I tucked everything into my folder the way a careful worker drops tools back into a case after the job is done. I turned to leave, then paused and set the folder back down. One more thing, I said. Can you flag this transfer so nobody can pull it back? She hesitated. Once the wire clears, that is automatic. Good, I said, and closed the folder. Outside, late afternoon sun slid across the glass like a long exhale. I checked my watch. It was a few minutes before 4 o'clock. The new account packet sat on the passenger seat, neat and heavy. For the first time since last night, I let myself show a thin smile. One step done. More to go. I started the engine and called Ryan. The bank is finished. The lawyer is next. I will meet you there, he said, and hung up. I pulled into traffic like it was any other Tuesday. Smooth. Signal on. Patient at lights. From the outside, nothing had changed. Inside, everything had. By the time Emily came home, the house would speak for me. The clock on my dashboard rolled past 5 o'clock. At 5:03 in the afternoon, according to the doorbell camera and the neighbor across the street who texted me a play-by-play, a black town car eased to the curb. Emily's heels clipped fast on the walk. The driver held the door, but she did not look back, still floating on satin sheets and expensive wine. For suitcases sat on our porch like packages nobody asked for. I had lined them up straight. The neighbors noticed. Small towns always do. She stopped short. The doorbell camera caught her first words. No. It came out quick and breathless, thrown at nobody. She dug for her keys and shoved one into the lock. It turned halfway and refused. She tried again, harder. Nothing. She pounded on the door. Mike, open the door. The house stayed quiet. Her calls hit my phone and went straight to voicemail. She called again. Same result. My cloud backup mirrored her call log almost in real time, so I watched the list build while I sat in my truck outside the attorney's office. She tried Ryan next. 2 rings, then a disconnect. She tried a friend. The doorbell microphone caught a soft, apologetic voice. I cannot tonight. Family is in town. Another door closed. She scrolled fast. At last, she called the silver-haired man. A woman answered. Who is this? Her tone was possessive and sharp. The line went dead. Even through a screen, the silence felt like a slap. The porch audio picked up the neighborhood the way it always does. A mower humming, bikes rattling past, someone across the street whispering. Is that her? She knew she was on display, standing there with her luggage like a runaway who forgot to plan where to run. She tried the key again. The metal held its ground. The new lock did not know her anymore. Mike, she hit the wood with her fist. You cannot do this to me. Do you hear me? You cannot. The windows threw her face back at her. The house did not. She pulled out a credit card. Fine, she said, her voice cracking. A hotel. I will go to a hotel. A ride showed up quick. She slid into the back seat and barked an address I knew by heart. Minutes later, the front desk scanner gave a flat denial. Insufficient funds, the clerk said, polite but curious. That is not possible. Emily snapped and tried another card. Then another. Declined. Declined. With each swipe, the clerk's smile shifted from professional to pity. Humiliation has a sound. It is quiet, and it wraps around the throat. Emily grabbed her bags and muttered, I will handle it, and hurried out before the looks could stick. The cloud feed showed the last call she made. There was only one option left. Home. Her parents' place. Night dropped while she rattled her suitcases up their narrow walk, each wheel bumping the cracked stone like a drumbeat. She smoothed her hair, wiped her face with her fingers, and tried to make it look like she meant to arrive this way. Her mother opened the door before she could knock. Older eyes fell to the luggage, then climbed to the smeared makeup and the wrinkled dress. Emily, what on earth? Can I stay? She asked. Her voice was thin and brittle, ready to break. Somewhere across town a traffic light changed, and I did not move. I sat with the new keys in my pocket and felt the steady weight of what I had started. I was not yelling. I was not chasing. I had simply taken back what was mine and let the truth do the rest. I did not need to be in that doorway to picture how it went when Emily showed up with 4 suitcases. A mother stepping aside without a word. A father lowering a newspaper and saying nothing, because silence can weigh more than questions. I have seen that look before. It measures you. It says it already knows more than you plan to admit. Back on my side of town, I walked into a law office Ryan Brooks had recommended. I carried Frank Walker's folder, photographs, timestamps, the hotel receipt, and the prenuptial agreement Emily once called just paperwork. The meeting was short. The attorney read, checked the prenuptial language, and nodded like a mechanic who sees a repair she can do with her eyes closed. This will be clean, she said. With these exhibits, the court will not hesitate. File it today, I said. She filed electronically. The stamp hit the record before lunch. I signed what was said in front of me. My hand did not shake. My face stayed still. For me, it was not only legal, it was surgical. A final cut to remove what had already died. For the next 3 days, Emily kept coming back to the house. I know because the doorbell camera caught mornings and afternoons, and neighbors texted me play-by-plays. Each day she stood for a while, and then left the same way, slower than she came. The curtains did not move. The porch stayed quiet. To her it must have felt like I had vanished. On the second day, she waited longer, leaning on the gate and staring down the drive. People watered lawns and fetched mail like they were not looking, and then they looked. Small towns do not miss much. Shame sits hot on the neck, and you can see it even behind sunglasses. By the 3rd morning, she went to my office building. The receptionist told me later that Emily came in wearing dark glasses and speaking in a small, careful voice. Is Mike in? She asked. He is not available today, the receptionist said, the exact line I had told them to use. Emily waited anyway. Hours. She walked a little circle. She pretended to read her phone. At dusk, they locked up. I had been across town all day. She never saw me. That night, she tried her friends. The same folks who once told her that better men, richer men, and easier lives were a simple matter of choice. I am busy tonight, Em. Not a good time. We will talk soon. Calls that did not ring back. She made one more call to the older man. I did not listen in. I do not wiretap. But the cloud record on her phone showed the number. A short connection, then an abrupt end. The town has a way of filling in the rest. People said a woman answered and told her not to call again. Whether it happened exactly that way or not, the result was the same. The line went dead. Her parents' house grew heavier by the day. You can tell when a father holds up a newspaper like a shield. You can hear a mother moving softly in the kitchen because she does not have the heart to ask the first hard question. You can feel people talking in low voices through the walls at midnight. It is not open judgment. It is something colder, disappointment you have to breathe through. On the fourth morning, she sat on our front step and did not knock. She just stared at the door like she could pull history out of the hinges if she tried hard enough. I remembered the laughter we once had inside those walls, and how I ignored what I should have seen sooner. I tightened my grip on the new keys and let the moment pass without touching it. The fifth day began thick and still. I was at Ryan's kitchen table with a cup of coffee that had gone cold when my phone buzzed. A text message from the process server. Service complete. Across town, the doorbell rang at her parents' house. Her mother answered and came back holding 2 thick manila envelopes. These are for you, she said. I had arranged both deliveries. One was from my attorney, petition, exhibits, and a request for temporary orders. The other was from the institutions that needed to say, in their own polite language, that access had changed and those accounts were not hers to touch. I did not need a camera to see Emily's hands hovering over those envelopes, shaking a little. I set my coffee down and looked at the clock. There is a point where a plan stops being a plan and becomes a timeline. I had crossed it days ago. I was not in that kitchen when the doorbell rang, but I know how it went. The process server did his job. 2 thick envelopes changed hands. Emily already knew what waited inside. She tore open the first one fast enough to catch a nail on the paper. At the top was the heading that drops your stomach, petition for divorce. Her name beside mine, black ink, calm and official. Behind it, clipped in place, sat our prenuptial agreement with the key lines marked. It said what it had always said. She would not walk away with what was never hers. No, she would whisper, shaking her head like she could rattle the letters off the page. She flipped through looking for a mistake, a loophole, a door she could slip through. Every paragraph was another wall. I can picture her father lowering the newspaper, jaw set. I can picture her mother's hands pressed together at her chest, eyes darker than anger. Before Emily could gather a defense, the second envelope split open. Photographs slid across the table in a glossy spill. There she was, laughing at another man's joke. There was the entrance to the Windsor Hotel at night. There was her hand laid easy on his arm like it belonged there. After the photographs came a receipt stamped with a date and time that did not care about excuses. A small sound from her mother. A chair leg scraping tile as her father stood. Heat up the neck. Vision gone watery. It is not what it looks like, she would try. But the lie could not stand. The pages said otherwise, loud and plain. Enough, her father would say, quiet and hard. This was the trap Emily never saw. I did not raise my voice. I did not chase her across town. I kept my mouth shut and let the record speak. Silence did the heavy lifting, and truth carried the rest. Her mother reached for the photographs, not to comfort, but to get them out of sight like they were burning. Emily folded in on herself at the table and cried behind her hands. For the first time since it started, she understood. I had not walked away because I was weak. I had done the work in daylight and put a clean edge on it. While she chased the idea of reconciliation, I had arranged a public, legal finish. Then came a new kind of quiet. Her parents did not scold. They did not ask questions. The only sounds in the room were the soft shuffle of paper as her father squared the stacks, and the slow breath of a mother wondering where the line got crossed. There comes a point when a plan is no longer a plan. It turns into what is real. This was that point. The marriage was finished. The evidence did not blink or bend. Somewhere across town I kept my mouth shut, because there was nothing left worth saying. If you had stood where I stood, what would you have done? You can tell me in the comments. If this story pressed on a sore spot, remember to like and subscribe for more true-to-life stories. 6 months later, A clerk at the courthouse stamped the final decree and slid the file to my attorney. The room smelled like paper and old carpet. There were no speeches. There were no scenes. A judge signed, and that made it final. I walked out into bright daylight, and the air moved through me like a clean wind after a storm. The prenuptial agreement held. Emily kept her personal things and a fair portion of what had always been hers. I kept the house, my accounts, and my quiet. There was no spousal support. There were no appeals. When the envelope with the final order came, I put it in the safe with my passport and the deed. I did not frame it. I did not need a trophy. That night I sat on the porch with a mug of coffee and listened to crickets. The porch light made a soft circle on the steps I had rebuilt last summer. It felt good to look at something I made with my own hands and know it would hold. It was a small thing, but it was true. A week after the decree, I sent a box to Emily's mother. Old photographs. A bracelet from childhood that I found behind a dresser. A wedding program pressed flat inside a cookbook. I tucked in a short note that said, "These belong with your family." I did not add anything else. Sometimes respect is quiet. People ask what changed. Everything and not much. I still open my shop on time. I still sweep sawdust into the same bin. I still tighten loose chair legs and fix wobbly stools for customers who tell long stories because they need to talk. But the space inside my life is different. It has edges again. I stopped checking Emily's cloud the day the court signed off. I deleted the login and fed the paper with that password to the shredder. Proof had done its job. Curiosity would only waste me. I do not track where she lives. The last I heard, she found a small apartment near her parents while she rebuilds. I do not wish her harm. I do not wish her anything at all. That is not cruelty. That is a straight line. Ryan Brooks still has a key. He drops by on Sunday evenings. We fire up the grill and cook whatever he brings in a paper sack. We do not go over the old story unless the lesson walks in by itself. When it does, it sounds like this. Do not shout when silence will do. Do not guess when you can get proof. Do not confuse drama with action. Fix what you can fix. Lock what you need to lock. Walk away from the rest. As for Frank Walker, I sent him a thank you note and a gift card. He said it bought him a new briefcase. He wrote one sentence back. "You were the rare client who wanted the truth more than a performance." I pinned that line on the corkboard in my shop. Not because I need praise. Because I need the reminder. I kept one photograph in the house. It is me beside the first set of shelves I ever built. My hair is too long. My grin is too wide. There is stain on my forearm. I hung it over the workbench. It is good to remember that a life comes together the way a bookcase comes together. Measure twice. Cut once. Sand the edges. Test the weight before you trust it. If you are standing where I stood, I hope you hear this part. You do not have to burn your life down to prove you were hurt. Take steps you can defend in daylight. Protect yourself without becoming what you faced. When the papers are signed, choose a better project. Give your hands something honest to do. A year from now, if I am fortunate, this house will smell like coffee and cedar and summer rain. The locks will click in that same clean way. The porch will hold. I will still be the quiet man who fixes things. Only now I know that sometimes the thing that needs fixing is the life you live inside your own walls. If you stayed with me to the end, thank you for listening. Tell me what you would have done differently.